This is the Art of Wrestling with professional wrestler Colt Cabana. It's Colt Cabana.
That is an announcer, which must make it official. My name is Colt Cabana. This is the Art of Wrestling, and it's on, man. It's official. Welcome to the podcast, the radio interview, the internet wave file, MPEG, MP3, MP4. I'm not really sure, man. This is the first run. We're going to see if it works. I'm going to give it the old college try, the old Western Michigan University go. And I'm excited. This is kind of like a new little venture. We're going to see if it works. A lot of people have been saying that this isn't a good idea. Colt, don't be a mark for yourself. Don't be a mark in general. Don't be an idiot. And you know what? Maybe 5 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, I would have said, I don't want to get a bad reputation or anything. But now I'm 30 years old. 12 years in wrestling, and I could give a fuck. This sounds like fun. This sounded like a fun opportunity, something to give to my fans, and I'm going to give it. I'm going to give it back. Give it back to the wrestling community. My friends, Cable Guy Jeff, over at TSM Radio, and Stu Stone from SundayNightStew.com. They presented me this. They've been doing their thing for 5 years on iTunes and the whole internet. Stu Stone's a genius on the internet. Of course, he's been in Donnie Darko. He had his own show on MTV with Jamie Kennedy called Blowing Up. They wrote a rap about Bob Saget. And they said, listen, we're doing our thing with our podcast or our radio show. We're doing that for Hollywood. We're doing that for the entertainment world, the comedy world. They said, Colt, where's the wrestling stuff? You know, we'll take care of TSM Radio. We'll take care of the comedy. We'll take care of the bits. We'll take care of Hollywood. Where's the wrestling podcasts? Wrestlers talking to wrestlers with a wrestler's view. And I said, I don't know. I got no clue. And a light bulb went in my head. And now I'm taking on my responsibility. It's my job. I've put this burden on my back, and I said, let's go for it, man. Let's go do it. You know what? I'm listening to podcasts all the time. I'm not a big music guy. I like talk radio. I grew up in Chicago listening to The Loop, which is all Johnny Brandmeier, Kevin Matthews, Howard Stern, not Mancow, but you know, he did his thing. He was what he was, but I'm a talk radio guy. That's what I've enjoyed growing up. And I like to listen to these comedy podcasts or just podcasts in general. And that's what I have. When I'm traveling on the road, when I'm at the gym, I'm listening to different stuff. And a lot of people give me the advice not to do this. You know, they said not to do it. But I look at a guy like Ricky Gervais, who's a billionaire. The Office in England has his own specials, and he started doing his own podcast just to have fun. And I think it's a fun thing to do. A top comedian in his field, just doing a fun little thing on the internet. Which wrestler has his own thing on the internet? And I might be naive, but I don't think I can name one. And there's a lot of guys who email me and message me and say, hey, Colt, can I have you on my radio interview? And I said, yeah, sure. I love the media. You know, I love the chance to promote myself. And I say, what's your credentials? Where'd you go to broadcasting school? Where's your communication degree? And they'll say, I'm a 15-year-old kid in our basement. We just do this for fun. And I just palm slap my head. Oh, God. But I do it anyways because I want some kind of promotion. I want one person to come to my website and maybe buy a T-shirt. That's the life I live right now. That $15 will save me. So I go on there and I do that. And there's these kids with haven't hit puberty voices who obviously all they did was read my Wikipedia page the day before, and it goes question answer to the point where I'm cracking jokes, and they don't even have a clue what's going on, and I just start cracking jokes on all of it. And a lot of people have heard some interviews I do. They're just disgustingly silly, where I just had it and I just start making shit up, talking about being trained by Jesus Christ, or, you know, wanting to become a wrestler because I saw my dad in his underwear as a kid and I thought that's what grown men did. They wore tight spandex underwear and fucked people, you know, and it just gets to the point where it's brutal, and I'm leading these interviews now. They're interviewing me, but it's gotten to the point where obviously my professionalism has just overtaken, and I'm leading these interviews. And never have I heard, and I'm going to have the opportunity now. Listen, I travel, and those who have no clue who I am, my name's Colt Cabana. I've been wrestling about 12 years now. I've traveled all over the world. I've done tours of Japan, Australia. This is not to brag. I'm just letting you know that I've been around. I was in WWE. I had a cup of coffee in WWE. It was a small, shitty cup of coffee with no cream, but it's not like, it's not like I've never been anywhere or done anything. I've made a living at this since I was 22. I'm 30 years old now, and it's been fun. And each week I go on the road and I bullshit with the wrestlers, man. So why not record it? Why not tape it? Why not get a wrestler's perspective of what's going on in the world, our views, our sights, where it could go, where it needs to go, kind of a younger aspect, a younger perceptive. I don't even know if that's a word. You'll learn a lot of this as this goes on, that I make up words, but we can appreciate it. Perspective, I think, would be the right word, and that's what we're going to do. And I know I'm 30 years old, and maybe I'm not the young guy anymore, but I believe that I'm one of the young. When I go. Anyways, my first guest, I talked to Shawn Daivari. Shawn's a great friend of mine. He's one of the smartest guys in the wrestling business, and later on, I'm going to talk to Shawn. And you guys are going to get a better idea of who Shawn is. I didn't read his Wikipedia page and ask him questions off that. I've known Shawn for probably 10 years now. I've seen him go from a scrub who was doing ring work, ring crew, all the way to wrestling Hulk Hogan and Shawn Michaels. And I've been his friend the whole time. I've been in a lot of different locker rooms. I've made a lot of different friends. I've seen friends main event Madison Square Garden. I've seen friends die, in the wrestling industry. It's crazy. But we're going to get their perspectives, and we're going to talk to them. We're going to talk about wrestling. And each week, you're not going to come on here, and you're not going to listen to me break down what happened on Raw or what happened on SmackDown. Go somewhere else for that. I'll probably give you my opinion every now and then on something that we'll talk about, but I'm not going to do a review each week. That has no interest to me. I try to watch all the shows. Sometimes it's pretty rough, as you know, as a wrestling fan. So for this is for wrestling fans who love wrestling, and maybe they don't love the wrestling that's presented on Monday night or Thursday nights, but they just love professional wrestling. I grew up loving professional wrestling. I still love professional wrestling. Maybe I don't love what's going on TV right now, but there's that little place in my heart. Maybe that's you. Maybe you don't watch wrestling right now, and you could care less about what's going to happen or what has happened. But here's an inside perspective. We're going to give it to you. And here's a fun story. This week, Masked Lucha Warriors debuted on MTV2. Something different, right? I watched it, and I kind of watched it sadly because myself and Gary Michael Cabana were supposed to be the announcers for it. I was going to do color commentary. He was going to do play-by-play. And unfortunately, a deal wasn't made. I was offered a pretty unfair contract to myself. Not to say anything bad about those guys, because they reached out to me. They remembered the praise I had gotten in FCW for what I did with Josh Matthews, and I always appreciate that praise, and I had a great time doing that. And so I was given this opportunity to be on MTV2 as a color commentary, the voice of Lucha Libre Masked Warriors. And I thought, what a fantastic opportunity. Unfortunately, they wanted me to be a mark for being on MTV and not a mark for being able to pay my mortgage or quit everything I'm doing and just work for them. I obviously, listen, I told them I was a mark for MTV. I said, hey, I'm going to be on MTV. I did Matt Classic on Wrestling Society X, and I saw how far that got me. It got me 8 episodes, and we got canceled, so Viva La Bam could go a little further. So, that's the realization. I watched that debut, and it was fun. It was what it was. There was some cool stuff, but that could have been me, and that was hard to watch. But I know that now with this podcast, my future is going to be bright. So take a little break. I'm going to play a wrestling song, I think, in between my little rants and these interviews. This brings back memories. I'd make you guess, but probably wouldn't know. I don't know. But this is the Coliseum home video music song that would play before every Coliseum home video when I would go to a Blockbuster or my local, I don't remember what my local VHS place was when I was a kid. They'd have those hard plastic covers that only like Disney would come in. They weren't the sleeves, they would open up and you'd get those Coliseum home videos, and on a rare occasion there was a new one. And I remember I would go and I would get the WrestleMania videotape, and my dad would get porn. And those are the memories that I love. And this song here brings back those memories, and then we'll talk to Shawn. So enjoy the song, enjoy the interview. They will get better, we will progress, and hopefully we make something cool here, guys. All right. We're in the Econo Lodge here in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. It's just finished the TV tapings, and welcome. My guest is Shawn Daivari.
Hello, how are you, Internet World?
Yes, and this is the first one, man. This is the first podcast, first interview, and I don't really know if it's going to be question to question or just kind of bullshitting. I guess it's a test run, really.
Just go with the flow and see where we wind up.
So that's. But I guess the goal is. It's going to let people more into our world, but from a wrestler's perspective on the road, but also, not just talk about stupid wrestling today, but just where you've been and just different ideas, and then maybe into different kind of stuff. I've known Shawn for a real long time, and I'll say this, when I first started wrestling, some of the first trips I ever took was up to Minnesota. I'd go there once a month with the crew that I trained with, me, CM Punk, Ace Steel, Danny Dominion. And we would go up there. I was probably, I think it was maybe 19 to 22 I did that. And as we would go up there, there was always this little Arab kid doing ring crew. And we all knew about Shawn Daivari because Shawn Daivari had a website promoting himself before his first match. And that was always...
with pictures.
And that was always kind of, we would always laugh and go, oh, we're going to see the 14-year-old kid with the great website this month. That was, tell us a little bit about your promotional endeavors, probably in junior high school during your wrestling career.
It was actually like, I learned, I did the website myself, and I learned like HTML code specifically for having a wrestling website. And like wrestling was a complete fucking completely different environment than what I had pictured it to be and what I thought it was going to be. But I stuck with my guns of what I thought it was going to be. So it's like when I showed up, I had ideas for like names and characters and what the names of my finishing moves were. And like before even I had my first match, I had like tights made with like my logos and my designs on it. And that was kind of like, I was still a kid. I started when I was like 15, so it was like you're still kind of, have a wild imagination, and you're still playing, sort of playing Cowboys and Indians, except I was playing pro wrestler, and that was kind of like I was going to my treehouse every day and thinking of like wrestling stuff. And my treehouse is my wrestling school, and that was something like I actually just somehow or some way came across like my original website. I think I had it saved on like an old broken computer I don't use, and like I was looking at it, and I used to like write out descriptions of my matches
And I
as they
remember
happened.
that. And I remember going...
It would say, like, I arm dragged so-and-so twice. And then,
Lenny Lane, I think,
yeah, different people. And then I put that, and I went back and I read it now, and I was going, oh my God, this is... I don't know what wrestling fans thought about it, but I could imagine any other wrestler that saw this would be like,
which was me and Punk.
You, Punk,
Yeah.
I'm sure everybody. I mean,
Yeah.
every wrestler looked at this. Like, what a fucking retard.
And I still remember that to this day.
Yeah.
Now you say you knew what your name was. Your real name's not Shawn, right?
No, but my name is Daivari.
Right. And then the story we always hear is, and I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but we always hear that you were trained by Eddie Sharkey, right? Or at least at Eddie Sharkey's camp, and that he would tell everybody that if anyone was a skinny young kid, that you're the next Sean Waltman.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
And you were the one to actually believe it.
Yeah, I was so like naive and just not even to wrestling, just naive to life. Like I said, I was like 15, 16 years old at this time point, and that was something that I didn't even catch on to. And like he was like, "Yeah, he's the next Sean Waltman." He'd say that to everybody.
And you said, "My name's now Sean Daivari."
Yeah, it was because I knew I didn't like Daivari because the one time I did wrestle as Daivari, there's a girl in the Midwest. Her name was Lacey, and they had a picture of her on the poster, and then it's like wrestling tonight, blah blah blah, Daivari. And Dara kind of sounds like a girl's name, even if you think it's Dara or something.
Right.
And everybody went up to her at the show, like, "Oh, are you Dara or Dara from the poster?" She's like, "No, I'm Lacey," and her name wasn't on there, but her picture was for whatever reason.
So, what was your wrestling name going to be when you had it all mapped out?
I don't remember. I remember I had like some Arab stuff. I remember I thought Arafat was funny. Like I was like, God, there's so many syllables and consonants in it. That would be something funny. I never really stuck to much else, but. This Shawn thing came up when it was coming up, like my second or third match. Mind you, my first match was at my trainer's son's graduation party. So I don't even know if you could consider that
Graduation of what, high school?
Yeah, like they set up a ring in his yard and like.
And it was probably all old men and you.
It was like 6 people, not even like the kid must have been a dork because nobody came.
Oh Jesus. Okay.
Austin Aries was the fucking wake up call. When my heart was just broken when Aries started maybe 6 to 8 months after I started, and then he looked. I mean, obviously showed promise, just like anyone with any sort of. You couldn't believe the number of fucking idiots that come through the door. So anyone that's not completely uncoordinated and looks like a complete fucking waterhead, you can tell his potential. And then as soon as he did a couple things that showed potential, Eddie was like, "Oh, look at this kid, he's great, keep it up, he'll be the next Sean Waltman." And right there I was just like, "Oh, win, sales, gone."
Shawn Aries.
Yeah.
Tell me about some of the morons. There's obviously guys that we go to wrestling school, and there's guys that make it. Obviously, where I came from, guys like CM Punk and Brad Bradley went on to be Ryan Braddock, and Eric Priest was the AWA champion for a little bit. But there's guys that I remember like Ricky Noga, who was a 40-year-old Chinese guy who played an Asian because he kind of looked like Steamboat.
Yeah.
There was this guy named Face Superior. It was a black kid, and he wrestled in sweatpants and had an NWO knee pad. Like, there's your goofs that just don't make it.
Yeah.
Like, do you remember some of your goofs?
Not specifically. I know.
You don't remember guys that trained?
I'm trying to rack my brain. Like, I don't. There's a guy that's apparently still wrestling around there. His name was Ian Xavier.
A big
just
guy.
A big fat fuck,
yeah.
and just would pummel the shit out of me every day because that was he was the fucking butt of every joke to every other wrestler that was around. So he'd be like, "Oh, here's new guys," and I can tell them I'm a big deal and they'll believe it, which I did. I thought he was the bee's knees when I met him. Just beat the shit out of you. Just a complete fat fuck with nasty long wrestler hair that was shaved underneath. So it's pretty much just like a comb over mohawk. and he was like a gimmick on top of a gimmick on top of a gimmick. Like, I remember one time we were doing a show and he's fat as fuck. He has long black hair, and then he had face paint on as well. But he was also had that it was right after Bret Hart got done with his heel run 1998-99. So then he was also Canadian on top of this. So he had a Canadian flag wrapped around him. He had a steel chair that had his name painted on it, not even professionally typographed or anything or stenciled on there, just painted on there his name.
Barry Balls Mahoney.
Yeah, exactly. Except not artistic at all, just shitty. And then he had a hockey stick that he'd bring out to the ring in his other hand. And then I remember the high spot of all high spots was he was going out to ring, and he took fucking like 100 yards of chain and wrapped it around his neck. And one of the wrestlers looked at me and went, "Oh, and chains." And then,
like Sharky sat him down. He's like, "You need stuff to like." Duggan's got the 2x4.
Yeah.
What do you have?
Everything else. It was absolutely ridiculous. And then, mind you, he was like a fat guy on his own, and a fat guy kind of is a gimmick.
Sure.
Like, you're the fat guy. There's not very many, like...
And is there a fat guy with chains?
Yeah, and not
hockey sticks?
And not only like a fat guy, he was like a ridiculously fat guy. He wasn't like just like...
He tagged with Big Daddy Hoofer.
Yeah.
Did they have a tag name? I don't remember.
Yeah, Cruel Intentions.
Sorry.
Haruki Doi.
Okay, now my dad was sold urban apparel as a kid.
Yeah.
He sold what's Sean Diddy's clothing?
I don't know.
Sean John. My dad
yeah.
sold Sean John. He sold Janko jeans. If you remember those Janko jeans long in the
I
bottom.
never had a pair, but everybody else did.
And so I found myself wearing Janko jeans, and I would wear whatever he had because that's what he sold.
Yeah.
Now you grew up, your parents owned a pizza parlor, right? How are you not the fattest kid in the world? Because I'm saying, like, I wore all those jeans because they were accessible.
Yeah.
I think if my parents owned a pizza parlor, not that I wasn't, I'm pretty girthy as it is, I think I'd be just the biggest tub of all time.
Yeah, well, one thing is I have, like, skinny jean genetics like you wouldn't believe. Like, if you ever saw my dad today at, like, 60 years old, he still looks like he's fucking a starving immigrant. Like, he's never had a...
And does he eat his own? Would he eat his own pizza?
Yeah, he just eats bullshit. He doesn't even diet or eat well. Just eats like bullshit. He's just like a skinny Borat looking dude. Just like.
So were you eating a lot of pizza as a kid?
No, well, and that was the thing. Like.
And what was your pizza place called?
The pizza place is called Leaning Tower of Pizza, and it's still there. There's two in Minneapolis, and like, we lived in the suburbs, which is about 25 minutes outside of downtown, and he worked in downtown, and it was like a restaurant / bar. So like, my dad would not come home until after the bar closed, which was like 2 a.m. in Minneapolis, and then so he would be getting up 2, probably cleans up everything like 2:30, 3ish. He's out the door, doesn't get home until 3:30. So we were already like long to bed before he'd even come home. And even the days he would come early, it was like 25-mile drive. Pizza gets kind of cold between now and then, so like it was never really.
When you were in high school, would you be around the bar?
A little bit, not too much.
Do you have legendary like bar stories?
No, nothing good. Like I didn't go like my. Like I said, I started wrestling when I was like 15 is when I started training. I had like my first matches when I was like 16. So like pretty much most teenagers get their freedom when they get their driver's license and get a car. So from the time I had like somewhat freedom to do and what I want, kind of fuck off a little bit, it was always like I was involved in the independent wrestling scene. So that was what I did. I never like
wasn't eat a shitload of pizza and watch a bunch of drunk people.
No, it wasn't at all. There's so many things that like I've never like this like in 4 years I will have been wrestling 50% of my life.
Right.
Which, it's not a lot of people get that way.
And I saw it's something I say a lot is that I say that I've been my whole adult life. All I know in my adult life is professional. Is the life of a professional wrestler.
I don't know anything else
because
of a teenage
I started
life.
at 18. Right. That's interesting. That
Like teenage life. Kids tell me all the time. They're like, "Oh yeah, like my wife's a perfect example. She'll tell me, yeah, so and so would get a keg and we'd fucking sit around their garage and we would drink beer and listen to the fucking whatever was hot Blink 182 CD or whatever and I was like I never did any of that shit and actually I think it helped me as mature as a human being is that from when I was 16 or 17 I was traveling with guys that were in their mid to late 20s sometimes early 30s and they would sneak me into bars and stuff so I've never sat around with a bunch of other high school kids and fucking tapped a keg and talked about how hot Jenny McCarthy was. I was like literally. I remember I fucked off maybe twice, and I really really embarrassed myself because I've spent time with forced with like my wife's little brother. He's about he's 17 now. He's even older than I was, and hanging out with him is like fuck. How annoying is it hanging out with this kid? And other wrestlers had to deal with that. Austin Aries tells me all the time like what a fucking annoying little bastard I was. He's like, you drove me crazy. I couldn't stand being around you. You were just this annoying fucking kid, And like at the time we met, I was 16. He was like 23 or 24. Sure. So he, significantly more mature than me. And then like I said, I fucked off once or twice and just was an annoying little bitch to have around. And then from there, I kind of grew up really quick. I remember one time I got really fucking drunk, and
what age?
17 maybe 16, 17. This is actually the reason why I never get like shit face smashed anymore. And it was after a show, and I was talking with one of the wrestlers who was dating another girl wrestler at the time, and I was just all drunk and saying like, yeah, whatever, so and so, we do this with the other chicks and blah blah blah, and we go out of town and stuff, and like his girlfriend was right there, and then he just kind of got into it, just started cussing me out and said, fucking, this may be some bullshit you fucking do on the weekends, but this is A, my relationship, and B, gonna be my career, and just cussed me out. And he was maybe 240 pounds, and I was like maybe 150 at the time.
Sure.
And I was going, fuck you, I'll kick your ass, let's go. And
He's like, here, I can offer you a free pizza if you want.
yeah, I'll coffee and pizza to make it better. At least my dad can. And then he obviously knew better. He knew if he fucking punched me once, I'd probably die.
Sure.
And then the next morning, I fucking I passed out in the car. He ended up carrying me like a fucking newlywed bride like into his house and put me in his couch, and fucking I puked all over myself, and he took my clothes off and changed my clothes for me. And then the next morning when I sobered up and realized, I was like, oh my god, I'm not, you're gonna have to grow up quick, because this shit will not fly too often.
Sure.
And that was, like I said, that was maybe, I might have still been 16, maybe 17, and then from there it was kind of like I grew up pretty quick, and now it's people always tell me, like, even when I met them, like, I was in WWE when I was like 19, 20 years old, and when people would find out how young I was, they were like, hey, because I look like shit, I look like I'm fucking 45 in the face, but they're always like, I had no idea you were that young, because you don't act like any other 19 or 20 years old. And that's why I'm saying, like, when I was 16, 17, I was kind of forced to act like I was 23, 24, 25, and then when I actually got to be 22, 23 years old, now I feel kind of like I'm in my 30s.
Right.
I have more common with wrestlers like Jerry Lynn than I do with some of the younger guys that are actually my age.
And what's interesting is that I always say that, like, the years that I broke in. Now, what year did you break in? 2000?
99.
Okay, 99. And I said the year 90. When I was breaking in 99, and especially in the Midwest, it was like, nowadays it's a lot of kids, and it still was kids when I was breaking in and stuff. But it was like just the end of like the real old guys still hanging around, the AWA guys and whatnot. And me being an 18, 19-year-old kid, like, it was in the locker room was mainly men. There's a lot of young kids now. Like, and I'm not saying like, oh, there's kids. I'm not gonna be that guy, but
I am.
The age is a lot lower now, especially in the independent shows. But when I first started, there was, I do these shows in Wisconsin, Minnesota, and there was 35, 40-year-old guys, and that wasn't weird. Nowadays, Steve Carino's a fucking weirdo because he's 40 years old, which is unfortunate. But so now you're this young kid, especially in these locker room with older guys. Now you're 19 and 20. And you're in the WWE. Yeah. So, kind of tell us a little bit, like
that was something. Like I said, I felt like I was properly prepared for that because of the same situation like you, where I had a chance to work with people that were significantly older than me, and you kind of match your surroundings, and because I had that surrounding, I was kind of able to mimic and follow that environment. So when I got there, I will always I always knew, like, what was up and what was down. I very rarely got caught in the crossfires of bullshit and stuff because at that point, I'd already been wrestling for approximately 5 years. I've been able to meet and talk to people that have done things and been places that gave me, like, advice and suggestions and stuff, and I kind of blended in right in with no problem, where there was people that were, like, in years alive older than me, that they were perceived as like younger than me because not so much because they haven't been wrestling as long, maybe they only had 2 or 3 years and stuff, but because, like I said, they didn't know, like I said, they were like, my wife, for example, when they were 16, 17, 18 years old, they were sitting around a garage fucking with a bunch of guys slamming kegs. So the next step up from that was being 20, 21, 22, 23 years old, which again, like you said, there's men in that locker room. A lot of them were like 40 years old with wives and, couple kids. Some of them even had kids that were my age. Like, I got along really good with Animal, and Animal had a son that's like 3 years younger than me. So it was like me and Animal's son were closer in age than me and Animal, but me and Animal had more in common.
And that's the bond, but it's also the bond of wrestling, I guess.
Yeah, the bond of wrestling. But like I said, it's like I said, just a lot of it is I don't feel my age. I don't feel like I act my age. And like I said, the people I hang out with, they tell me like I'll use Jerry Lynn for example. Like, me and Jerry Lynn can hang out all day and we'll get along fine and whatever. But I promise you put him with another 25-year-old, eventually Jerry's gonna be like, this fucking kid's driving me crazy.
Sure. You moved down from Minnesota to Louisville to say, hey, I want to be a WWE superstar. What age was that?
That was 18.
Okay, at 18. Did you tell your parents about it? Did you talk to them about it?
Sort of. I've been fortunate, it's been easier for me that my parents are completely clueless to this day as to what exactly it is that I do. Like,
where are your parents from exactly?
Both my mom and dad were from Tehran, Iran, and they immigrated to the United States in the 70s, and then shortly thereafter, in the early 80s, me and my brother were born. And then,
and so are they of the hey, he's 18, now it's your turn to be your own life?
No, not really. I mean, they did all the bullshit. Like, they told me to go to college, and they were concerned with that. They're like extremely Americanized. Like I said, when my mom and dad both moved to the United States, they were like, my mom I think was 19 and my dad was like 21. So it's like, now that they're in their 50s, fuck, I think my dad's might be in his early 60s. They've been in the United States longer than over there, and like we were talking about earlier, they've lived their mature adult life in the States. So they don't. The only life they know from over there was kids when they're kind of spoon fed by their parents, everything. And like I said, to this day, I really don't think my parents exactly understand what it is I do. Like, they know wrestling is this thing that happens on TV sometimes, and people go watch it, and it's grown men
you're
fake.
You're paying bills.
Yeah, and like I said, they really don't get
and
what
you look
it is
really
I do.
strong. Obviously,
Yeah.
our little Sean's going to the gym.
That's like my parents don't watch, like, when I was on like TV, like Raw or SmackDown, they wouldn't watch it. Like, it's weird because I meet other people's parents that are like
Would you say, hey, I'm on TV? Did you say, hey, watch me?
No, not really. They weren't interested. Like I said, I really don't think they grasp what it is that I do.
Once you weren't ready to put that pizza in that fucking oven.
Yeah, then they washed their hands of me.
If you couldn't make a pepperoni pie, you're no good to them, Iranians.
And I mean, it was even like I said, but I kind of left them in the dark. Like, I know a lot of people are just like, hey, Mom, Dad, I'm doing this show, you should come, or I'm going to be on TV at this time, and they clue their parents in. It was never, I've never really been like a super tight family guy either. I moved out when I was 17 years old, and I was on my own. Like I said, a lot of it had to do with wrestling, that I felt like I was doing my own shit.
You've been around mature people now.
Yeah, and like I said, it was, and I've never, like, even now, even when I lived 15 miles away from my mom and dad, I saw them maybe twice a year. Now that I live 1,000 miles away, I see them even less. And we don't talk, sometimes I'll go 3, 4, 5 months without talking to them on the phone. It's not that I dislike them or they dislike me or anything. It's just I'm kind of a loner. The only person that's really into my life is my wife. And how she got in, I have no fucking idea, but she snuck her way in somehow.
That's what wives do, I guess.
Yeah, it fucking snuck up on me, and now I'm stuck with her.
And I remember talking to you at the time, and you debuted with these vignettes saying in WWE with fucking what's his name?
Muhammad
Hassan. And I remember you telling me these ideas that you had that you were trying to pitch to creative, and you were telling me and I remember at the time I was pretty naive to it. I was doing ROH, and you were telling me the politics of the creative team even at that time. And you were like, you got to tell one person because you can't tell everybody, because then that one person will go and they'll say it's not their idea, and then they'll get credit for it, and that's good as long as you get your idea going. But the idea was that you wanted to go in saying, hey, we're not these Arabs that are going to blow everything down. We're an American. Tell me how much like your view of how those first couple vignettes were to how much they were on TV, because I thought on TV they were some of the best things that they've done to introduce a character. Tell me how much of that input was you.
A lot of it was both me and Muhammad, because none of it was really written out, And I should say a lot of the credit goes to the editor, because they literally like one, I remember we were at an airport and they just had the cameras rolling and they said, talk about how you're discriminating at the airports, and we did like one take, and then they're like, okay, just say it again in just different words, and we did it again, and then they're like, anything you want to say? And then I was like, yeah, maybe we should have a thing of us going through the X-ray machine, because it was like a small like one gate airport that they rented for the day, and they had fake actors in there. And mind you, this was at the time when like
how much do you think that fake actor got?
Maybe $250. I think like a day's rate. No, you never ever see production like that today for guys anymore. Like I would dare say they booked an airport, rented out an entire airport, rented out a private jet so it could just drive back and forth on the runway in the background to look like there's action going on in the airport. And that was just one of them. We did one in a neighborhood where we rented out like a neighborhood for like a community that was being built. They rented out a neighborhood. They had like boom cameras and stuff coming in. Like this you could tell it was a big deal, and they don't do it anymore. That that just like in the olden days, this was something I think they wanted to get going again, as they were really big on the vignettes, and we were lucky at that time. There was a wave of like 2 or 3 of us, and they just pulled the plug on it. 2 before me was... No, 1 before us was Carlito.
Okay.
Carlito got like...
Which got him over right away.
He got like a really good high-budget set of introductions. Then we came in next, same thing, really high-budget, expensive stuff. And the one person after us was Chris Masters. Chris Masters got some really good vignettes and stuff of him like posing and flexing in a museum and on a turning pedestal where he's like a human statue and shit. And then and that was the last one. You've never seen anything like that since.
When I debuted, it was Kofi. I remember Kofi got some, and that was way before I got up.
Yeah.
But we were in development at the same time. We're like, wow, he got these nice ones on the beach. And then obviously Kazarni got those, and they didn't rent out. They didn't rent out the carnival.
Yeah.
They just kind of took them to a carnival, and they said they just kind of smartened up some of the guys and said, hey, kind of
Exactly. I'm sure they did it with a fraction of the budget. I'm sure they did it with 1 camera. And then, and they...
But even at the time I was in development, I was going like, wow, they flew you there, and they put you up in a hotel. The guy was really excited.
It was crazy. Like, for us, we had limo service, we had catering at these shoots, and each shoot was about a 15-hour day. And we did maybe about a week and a half of them. Yeah. And like I said, it's you could tell, and that was something, too. That was my only time there where I felt like I was properly figured in. Because you would show up, and they'd say, here's what you do. Like, we would do, like, week numbers. So there's always, like, 4 weeks between pay-per-views. And they'd be like, here's what you're doing week 1, here's what you're doing week 2, we're not 100% about week 3, and this is how the go home at week 4 is going to go, and this is what's happening at the pay-per-view. This would happen like on one Monday Night Raw, and things would pan out exactly as planned. And then, like I said, even later on when I was doing stuff with other top guys like Kurt Angle and Mark Henry and Great Khali and stuff, like shit was just fly by the seat of your pants. Didn't have stuff figured out, they didn't know what they were doing, so it was unfortunate. That was one of the few times that I really felt like they had their shit together and they were figuring it out. This was something that was figured into Vince McMahon's product. Right. They still do that kind of shit with like Undertaker and John Cena and stuff, but nobody in the undercard gets opportunities like that anymore. Even like I remember Carlito was getting that kind of treatment before he hurt his shoulder, and then they just put the brakes on him for whatever reason. But yeah, it's kind of the way the thing goes.
I think this podcast we want to be kind of positive. Okay, well, so you went on it and you obviously did the Hulk Hogan bullshit. You wrestled Hogan, the Undertaker. You were with Carly. Tell me one guy that you thought you couldn't believe was such a nice guy, and one guy, I guess, if you want to, who was just like, wow, this guy was an asshole. And
I hate saying it now. I never minded saying it before now, but almost because he's dead, I feel like it's bad to say. But Test was a fucking dickhead.
Test was a dickhead.
Complete fucking asshole, and I never understood why. He's never drawn a dollar. He's never fucking sold out Madison Square Garden. He's never headlined a pay-per-view. If Ric Flair is a dickhead to me, I can at least be like, well, fuck, he's Ric Flair. He's done everything. I'm a fucking peon to him. And it wasn't just me. Test, he was actually fairly nice to me. It was me seeing him be a dickhead to everybody else that maybe just despised the guy, just talked down to people like they were fucking peons. And like I said, I never minded saying it before, but now people are always like, oh, you shouldn't speak ill of the dead.
Well, I'll tell you, Dr. Death was a piece of shit.
Yeah, and so that was something. But as far as nice, everybody's been nice, I guess.
The one guy that you're like, wow, I didn't expect that guy to be amazing.
Maybe Bob Holly, because he was painted to be such a dickhead piece of shit. But no, he was as cool as anybody else. I really can't think of. Maybe Vince, when you got him on a good day, like he was some. If you got him on a good day, he was surprisingly open and receptive and enlightening. But sometimes if you got him on a bad day, it was just. I always knew Stephanie was the radar. And I'd go to Steph and be like, hey, can I talk to Vince today? And she'd be like, maybe today's not a good day. One wink, Steph, for everything's okay. 2 winks for maybe. She'd just flat out say it. And then I'd be like, hey, Steph, you think I can talk to Vince today? She's like, yeah, today's a good day. If you see he's free, go grab him. And he, like, when he had those days that things were going according to plan, he'd always be like, yeah, come on in, sit down. And I remember people's jaws would always drop that I'd fucking knock on his door and be like, hey, can we talk? And people are like, holy fuck, you can't do that.
But I've always heard that he's very open to his talent.
Yeah, he don't, it's his business model. If I can convince him that if I can convince him that he's going to pay me $6 million, that means he made fucking 15 off of me. So why would he not, why would he not be open to that kind of stuff? And he says it all the time, but like I said, if you catch him on those bad days, it can be intimidating, and if you try talking to him on a bad day, it can rock your confidence to ever talk to him again.
Yeah.
I got it once or twice, but it never rocked my confidence because the good conversations outweighed like the 1 or 2 bad ones we had.
Sure.
Who was the most underrated person on the creative side?
Pat Patterson.
Pat Patterson.
Yeah, but he wasn't really creative. So
there's a lot of there's a lot of young creative people while I was there that I just felt had fun ideas, but just got shot down because they didn't have the balls to bring it up to the big guy or whatever.
Right.
Was there anyone who were like, man, this guy's got a lot of good ideas, but he's just...
It was hard to tell because, like you said, you never seen him come to fruition.
Right.
People would say that, I'm like, oh, that could be good, or oh, that could be good, but an idea is only as good as the execution. Yeah. And like you said, before it even gets to execution, it would get shot down, so you never saw it panned out. And so many of them came through, I don't even know their fucking names. I know the head writers of the shows, but I can't even remember one associate writer or assistant writer. My life depended on it.
Tell me why Shawn Daivari is different, man. Why?
Now I can tell you, now I really, really have and it sucks because not a lot of people do TV, but I really have a good concept of how television pro wrestling works. And that's something that I've had the advantage of. Like I said, I don't do TV very many places, or if I do TV, it's such small-time Bush League stuff that it don't really matter. But now I know how to do proper television, and I can instill that in the guy I'm working, and I can make it a polished and well product to be presented on television. Unfortunately,
so you're strictly a TV wrestler.
It's strictly a TV wrestler. No, I mean, the live events are easy. Anyone, if you're given a blank canvas and say, okay, 10 minutes, go out there and do whatever you want, you have to be fucking rotten to not have a good match there.
But it's easy. It's easy to me to say with you. It's easy. I see so many guys just in trunks, and I go, "Why are you different? What do you have to offer?" I mean, the obvious answer for you is I'm an Arab wrestler. I'm a gimmick, and it's so easy to throw an American flag on somebody and say "boo him, yeah him." How much do you like using that, or do you not like using that?
I don't mind at all. It's completely up to the promoter. Yeah. It's up to the promoter, and it's up to the audience. I knew in Ring of Honor, I said this Arab shtick will not get over. They will shit all over it. And I brought it up to Adam, and I brought it up to he brought it up to Cornette, and I almost even mentioned a Steve Austin thing. I said, in ECW, Steve Austin did these cool things where he said he's not fucking stunning Steve Austin. He's just Steve Austin who he is. And I said, can we go in that direction? They said, yeah, sure. And we did. And it still has some foreigner undertone to it, but it's not coming out, USA Hak Patui, bullshit like that. And they said, just go out there and be Shawn Daivari or whatever that is. And like I said, I feel a little handicapped with it because sometimes I don't know what to do with it. There's a lot of times where I know little foreigner Arab mannerisms or things to say that come to mind just from having so many in my back pocket from years and years of wrestling like that. But I think it's slowly coming to, and like I said, it's kind of cool to do, but it's knowing your audience. I know the Ring of Honor audience wouldn't like that shit, and I know when I go to Canada or Europe and stuff, I really can't play on the crowd too much for that because they really don't have heat with Arabs. In Europe, there's more Arabs than black people, so it's over there it doesn't work. But here in the States, depending on the babyface I'm working with, I can feel the crowd in the match and know how heavy to take it, how relevant to make it or how irrelevant to make it to the match.
It's something I love to do. Obviously I love comedy and I love to do comedic wrestling. And it's when I'm doing a serious match and I see an opening to make a fart joke. Yeah. I want to do it so bad I have to hold myself back.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I feel the same way too. There's
it's you just gave me that. I want to make a fart noise, make everybody laugh, but I have to be a serious wrestler here. Before we jet, man, anything to plug or?
No, just my website, ShawnDaivari.com. There's merchandise on there. Please buy some stuff.
And that's the point of it. Actually, a lot of this is to support the local wrestlers. Shawn really isn't a contracted wrestler now. Even though when he was contracted, he was an independent contractor. But we're out here in the hustle, and we really appreciate your support. So it's ShawnDaivari.com.
Yeah, you can go on there, and then you can get a hold of my agent on there. It's bookdaivari@gmail.com. I do independent shows, clinics, training camps, autographs, meet and greets, conventions, whatever people need me for.
Pizza parlor openings.
Pizza parlor grand opening, but you have to supply your own giant scissors. I will bring the ribbon.
And where do you want to see wrestling go in the future, man?
For me or for the business?
That just kind of what's something that wrestling needs or anything.
It needs to evolve. It's the form. In the mid '90s. Not mid-90s, in the early 90s, they had a wrestling formula that was dated. And the only reason it evolved is out of necessity, because WCW was kind of getting the concept of evolving the formula, and WWE was not, and WWF was not, and they got left in the dust. And they almost kind of,
They were about to go under.
Yeah, Cornette told me that. I think it was like 1995. Vince McMahon lost $6 million that year, and they were forced to evolve out of necessity. And then they evolved their formula better than WCW's formula, and came back and ended up, not because of WWF, but eventually WCW went out of business. That formula that evolved, let's say it's a formula from 1998, 1999, is the same formula that's in play today in 2010. And because there's no other promotion to knock them on their ass and put them in a $6 million loss, necessity is not going to force them to evolve again, and they're just going to stick with it. And it's tired, and it has all the numbers and all the statistics to prove that the audience is tired with it. So I don't know who it is. I thought TNA might have been that chance, but it doesn't look like that.
Now that you're not with them, it's definitely not.
I knew